Welcome to the Bookish Hour with your hosts, Sarah E. Burr and J.C. Kenney. And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bookish Hour. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I am live from Daytona Beach, Florida, celebrating National Margarita Day. JC Kenney, Sarah, it's Baby Friday. It's margaritas. We've got the one and only fabulous Sydney Leigh joining us tonight. I think it's time to get bookish.
I couldn't have said it better myself, JC. And I love that you introduced National Margarita Day before yourself. So I really think that that speaks to the mood for this evening, which is fun and exciting. And we're super excited that Sydney is here to join us to talk about her debut cozy mystery, Peril in Pink. Sydney, welcome to the Bookish Hour.
Hi, guys. Can I just, when I talk, I have just like an echo, like word echo. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
something like a computer.
Yeah, I'm getting a little funky echo from you also there, Sydney.
I think as the software kind of picks up and recognizes everything, things should level out. But let's hope that we're good to go from there.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, folks, because we want to let you know we were chatting before the show went live, and all the audio. See, Sydney, I told you I can't talk on this show. All the audio was working fine. So anyway, yeah. Sydney, tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Sydney Leigh. I'm a cozy mystery author. I live in a small lakeside town just outside of Toronto in Canada. And let's see. I've been writing cozy mysteries for quite a while, but this book that I have coming out now is probably the one that I am most excited about. So I'm happy to be here to talk about it.
Well, we're really excited to be able to chat with you this evening about it and learn more about how Jess became this innkeeper of a Insta-worthy inn, which I was already like reading the description of the book. I was like, this speaks to my soul. So we're really excited to chat more about it. And we want to say hello to our wonderful viewers who are joining us live this evening. We've got Farmhouse Reader, we've got Mark, we've got DHB, we've got Rotorhead, and we've got Claudia all saying hello in the chat. Hi, guys. Welcome, and thank you for being here. As you can see, I think the margaritas are kind of affecting either our tech or our cadence for the evening. But again, we're going to have a lot of fun here with Sydney. And to kick things off, I would love to know I guess because this is the start of a brand new series, we're meeting a brand new sleuth. Tell us a little bit about Jess and the world that she lives in.
Okay, great. So, sorry, this is just throwing me a bit. So sorry about that.
Well, now you're sounding perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, well, that's the most important thing. So Jess Byrne is the name of my protagonist. She left the corporate world to open up a bed and breakfast with her best friend. So it was a former rooming house owned by her grandmother. And at the tender age of 28, she and her best friend were kind of burnt out of their jobs. And they decided to tackle this old, decrepit house and turn it into a modern bed and breakfast to kind of attract a young millennial savvy crowd, I guess. So.
Just my scene, and seeing how there are a lot of characters at play here, which sound very, very interesting. One being the how Jess's ex-boyfriend is kind of brought into the mix and plays a role within the mystery. Number one, the fact that he is like a reality TV star singer. I was like, oh my gosh, so cool. But just their relationship sounds like it would be very interesting to navigate, because, and I don't think this is like too many spoilers, where the murder that takes place, Lars is on the hook, or he is the suspect for this murder. And so he asks Jess for her help. How did that, like, how was writing that relationship? Because it feels like it could be potentially very antagonistic, but depending on what type of exes they are, it may be very fun and exciting.
Right. Well, it's funny because I myself have a lot of ex-boyfriends that I'm really close to, that are like more like, brothers than they are, there's no like bad blood or anything. And I think it's a really interesting dynamic of, the dating world of you're so close to this person and then it's just over. And you're supposed to have, no emotions, even though you have these like close feelings and tender moments and all that sort of thing. So I find it's a really interesting relationship to navigate, especially when it's a first love type of situation, which is with Jess and Lars. So even though things kind of ended badly, like so many, high school relationships can, there's still that first love kind of feeling that it's, I don't know if it's protectiveness or just like a nostalgia or something, but there's just some care there that, in spite of the fact that Lars really is an idiot, he's not a terrible guy, so she thinks, or so she's hoping to think. So I just thought it was really kind of fun back and forth relationship to explore, because she just doesn't know, and as it goes along, it's almost more confusing than less.
So, you bring up some interesting topics, because Sarah has talked a lot about how one of the things that in her writing, especially, well, really all of her series, with Sarah's books, the value of friendship really shines. And it sounds like what you're talking about with Lars and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. This is Jess. Yes, with Lars and Jess, that really is, there's that long-term friendship, and that has survived obviously some ups and downs. So can you talk a little bit about the fact that, they've not only are Jess and Lars friends, but that, they've been friends for obviously a long time. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that impacts the story?
Well, it kind of adds just a layer of complication that, sometimes when things look one way to maybe everybody else in the outside world, like if you're this person that has that long kind of complicated relationship, you kind of look past it. Maybe you have more trust there, or you're willing to put more belief in where everybody else is going to give up. Maybe you must take a little bit longer. You just have that. I don't know if it's like just that depth of care, or if it's like some sort of ties of the past. Whatever it is, it's just, you just don't want to let go when everybody else is like willing to give up and think the worst. So and I guess it's maybe a faith in what the past or that sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I know this dude. He may be a lunkhead, but I've known him for years. This isn't him.
Yeah, and Jess and Lars share something. They both lost a parent when they were young, and I think that kind of goes to the depth of her feelings, because she saw him and he saw her really at their worst and at their most vulnerable when they were teenagers, going through a really tough loss. So I think that really makes her hold on to the faith, and that he's not who everybody starts to think that he may be. And just a loyal person, she loves, like, I think it's one of the best qualities. She's kind of a goofball, but she really really loyal to her best friend, her brother, her friends. So it creates a lot of, I guess, sometimes it tests relationships, and maybe sometimes you shouldn't have as much loyalty. And that kind of comes up in the book.
I think in hearing you talk about that, Sydney, their relationship sounds like something that a lot of readers can identify with, because I'm sure that we all have that special someone from our past. And it doesn't even have to be, an ex or whatnot, but it's somebody that, from way back when, and you would do what you could to help them. So I imagine that that's a very relatable moment for people to connect with Jess as a main character. But she also has, Lars isn't her only, the only friend that really gets highlighted. It's her friend Kat that she's opened up the B&B with. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Kat and Jess's relationship, how they came to be business partners, and whether or not that business relationship translates into being partners in sleuthing exploits.
Right. So yeah, Jess and Kat, they're best friends. They've been best friends since high school. Other secrets, so they have to stay friends. And but they love to give each other a hard time. They don't always see eye to eye. And they're both quite stubborn. So Jess is really she's more of a people pleaser. She is supposed to be more the face of the business, kind of more out there. And Kat is an accountant, and she really wants to stay behind the scenes. She's usually a little more level-headed, and she likes to call out BS when she sees it. So she's kind of straight man to Jess's sickness at times, but she too can get a little bit. When she gets into something or she gets an idea in her head, she can run with it. So, especially if somebody's upset her, she might laugh a little bit. But so they kind of balance each other back and forth, and they tease each other. But ultimately, really, I hope to use the care that they really have each other's backs at all times.
I think it's really nice when you have those, you have two friends that can really balance each other, because it creates moments and scenes that are really fun for them to play off of. Because if they're kind of like the same person, then it's a little bit harder for them to kind of, have the humorous moments that Cozy Mysteries are so well known for. But I'm very curious about Jess herself. You mentioned that, once she gets an idea inside of her head that, she really can't let it go. So I'm wondering, how does she come to be involved in solving a mystery?
Well, there's I think it's really there's two main reasons why she kind of gets involved. And the first is there's a murder on opening weekend at her bed and breakfast. And you don't want to leave an unsolved murder at your bed and breakfast, because that's not going to give it a very good reputation. But to kind of, have a business still. So, to not scare people off, you really want to make sure that's solved, that it makes sense, that people aren't scared that there's a killer running around. So the first part is that she really needs to protect her business, or that's what she's thinking. And the other thing is that good old Lars comes into play, and he's done some stupid things, and he really asks her for help. And nobody sees the good parts of him, but she does, and he knows this. So the police are really looking at him like he's probably guilty. Her friends, the people who live in the town where he grew up, nobody sees that he might be an innocent guy, and he knows that knows him deep down, and so he really leans hard into and she's a people pleaser, so she's both.
So kind of along that line, one of the things I'm curious about is in reading the preview, reading the summary, it sounds like when the body is discovered, basically everybody who's there at the B&B, they are kind of stuck there. And so this turns into whether we want to call it the traditional locked room mystery, closed circle mystery. Those are some of my favorites because they are it involves such a small cast, and everybody could be the suspect. And I think they are incredibly hard to write. I haven't figured out how to write one yet. So I'd love to know from you, Sydney, where the idea for that closed circle mystery came from, and how did it go writing it?
Well, I do cheat a little bit with the closed word thing because there is a restaurant, a bar called the Cool Vibes Cafe where Lark is supposed to play on opening night. So there is a pathway for the public to join the bar. So in fact, there's not just the hotel guests, there's also a lot of the town folk are there. So there is that, but it is a small area. It becomes obvious quickly that there's 5 or 6 suspects because there is some CCTV camera. That it's going to have to be probably somebody that was not in the hotel very close by. So they do narrow down the suspects really quickly. And I think for me, in terms of this small cast or the closed door, I just love, I really love getting to know the characters. And that includes the suspects. I know with your guys' writing too, you don't want to just have somebody either good or bad. You really want to see the different layers of who they are to create characters that really feel like actual people. So having it with the guests, just gets to see everybody from the time they wake up in the morning until they go to bed at night. So she's always around the suspects and kind of sees what's going on with them. And being a small town, and at least they're a small community, she knows a lot of the other people that could also be, I guess, suspects. So I guess it's just getting to know everybody.
And I definitely want us to dig more into that writing of the mystery, Sydney. I'm wondering though, do you mind your sound is deteriorating a little bit. Could you by any chance leave our conversation and just pop back in to see if that kind of resets things? And JC and I will hold the fort down here.
Okay,
folks,
yeah.
it's live TV. Anything can happen. So we want to make sure that you guys have the best viewing experience.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, because it was fine before. So okay, I'll do that.
Perfect. Awesome.
And
JC, what you were saying about the locked room mystery being really hard for you to write, I am the exact opposite. I feel like they are the easiest for me because it's okay, you only have a very small pool of suspects that you have to juggle and deal with. Making sure that the locked roomness of it is believable, I think is where it can be really tricky. But for me, it's if, somebody is just murdered inside of a house that anybody could have access to, well, who could it be? I think that the openness of that particular crime is always the trickiest for me to write.
Yeah, I think for me where I struggle, because I've got an idea for one, and I haven't really gone down that far. I haven't developed it beyond that initial story nugget, because I guess I kind of like the freedom, I guess, that the non-closed circle has to kind of wander about. You run into all these different people, and our sleuth is able to find and pick up clues, who knows, from wherever. I think part of it also, I guess, is for me a little bit, I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, and she wrote so many amazing, locked room, closed circle mysteries that it's okay, there's no way I could ever do one.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask, what do you think is her greatest locked room mystery?
Or
the one that's most memorable to you?
Well, to me, I don't know if this really qualifies, but my personal favorite is Evil Under the Sun.
Ooh.
And I think that probably her best is still, it's got to be, and then there were none, but regardless of whether it's something in, hey, now we got Sydney back. So enough of my rambling about my love of Agatha Christie. So.
Oh my God, it's totally fine now.
Awesome.
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad that if there was a relatively easy fix, because you never know.
You know what it was? So my husband's a techie. As soon as I'm like, try. So he came down and he said, it's because you have it. I had it open on 4 different channels. So every time one of you, it was going 4 times.
Gotcha.
So
that would do it.
Well, Sydney, we love you, and we're so glad you're here. One of you is enough. We don't need the other 3.
Yes, and my husband would certainly agree with that.
Okay.
We were just talking about the whole concept of the closed room mystery and how JC had said that he, it's something that it's a harder type of mystery for him to write. And I'm thinking on my end that it's the easier type of mystery for me to write because it's so small and so focused. And you get to have those relationships with the characters that are in play. I'm curious because this you mentioned that, you've been writing cozy mysteries for a while now. What is it about the cozy mystery genre that kind of brings you, that has reeled you in, that makes you want to focus on this particular genre?
I've always loved cozy mysteries, even before I knew what that wording meant. I loved Murder, She Wrote, like obsessed with Murder, She Wrote. Jessica Fletcher is my hero. I just enjoy it. I just find it brings so much joy. I love the aspect of the mystery. I love getting to know the whole cast of characters in the community. And I think bringing those together, I just brings so much joy. I think one of the first cozy mysteries I read was there was a talking cat, and I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever read in my life, but I loved it. I was like, I felt like, how have I never known about this? It was so much fun. And I just love the kind of some of the silliness that comes in, the characters, the quirkiness. It just makes me smile. I mean, it's hard to be in a bad mood when you're reading the cozy.
I think, and you're in the right place because, JC and I obviously love cozy mysteries to death. We have many of our viewers are big cozy fans. We've got Daniela, who is saying how much they're looking forward to the release of Peril in Pink, which is very exciting.
Yes.
And then, of course, we have Rotorhead chiming in saying that multi-screens rule. So you're not alone in having in being tabbed out. And I think the community that you mentioned about that warm, joyful community, like you can't experience a cozy mystery without feeling that joy. I think the only time that I get frustrated in a cozy mystery is when there's a love triangle and the person that I'm rooting for does not win in the end. And that's like the only time that I can ever complain about a cozy.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And that can happen. It's funny because one of the mystery series that I really enjoy is Olivia Black's her record, what is it called? The Record Store Mysteries, I think. And there's a love triangle in that. And I have a really bad feeling that my guy, the bad boy, is not going to win. I'm like, no.
I have a terrible habit of usually picking the loser in the series that I love. But there is one, and I will it's probably the reason why it's one of my favorite cozy series is Julia Buckley's The Writer's Apprentice Mysteries. And the person that I was rooting for got the girl in the end. I was like, yes, I have finally
won. One of the things, talking about, the people who you root for and all that, I'm interested to know, Sydney, Sarah has talked very often about she became a fan of cozy mysteries and the mystery genre from, the get-go reading Nancy Drew. I came at it a lot differently. My mom was a huge fan of the Golden Age of Mystery. Those books were around my house, all my life. I didn't read my first Agatha Christie novel until I was in high school, and then didn't really get into like serious mystery reading until within the past, say, 10 years or so. I'm curious, how would you, do you have kind of a story of, obviously, we all love Jessica, but like, did you read mysteries as a kid, or, kind of tell us your mystery story?
Yeah, so I did read a lot of Nancy Drew, but I went dark when I was young. Like I read like Flowers in the Attic and Stephen King, and like that was my like really weird dark stuff. So I really liked the really dark stuff when I was young, and I really liked horror, which is it's too dark for me now. I think when I became a mom, I really like wimped out. Like so I don't know what happened, but. So I'm like, okay, no kids can get hurt. No animals can get hurt. Like I have all these rules, which of course, Cozy fits. So that's great. But I love reading modern romance like Emily Henry and nothing really spicy, but a little bit of spice is good for me. So it's not the only genre I read, but it's certainly one of my favorites. And it's one I always go back to.
I always wonder the type of person I would have been if I had not read V.C. Andrews at like when I was 11 years old.
Yeah, I know.
Those books are, I mean, talk about twisty.
So weird. So weird.
And I've never read them. And I'm like so uncool because like, and my wife has told me, yeah, she remembers reading Flowers in the Attic when she was like 13 or 14. And it was like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be reading this. And she kept going.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's one of those, like you hide it under your pillow from your mom because it really is weird. And, but I think like now, my daughter's 12 and she's reading Twilight and all that kind of stuff. And that's it's like the cleaner version, I think, almost of Flowers in the Attic. I wouldn't want my kids reading Flowers in the Attic. It's weird.
It's twisty.
But, yeah, it is. But no, I always liked mysteries. I didn't read Agatha Christie. It's shameful. I didn't read her until I was in my 30s, actually. But I watched a lot of Poirot. Mm-hmm. And my mom loved, the Poirot and Miss Marple. So I watched it before I read any of it. And I tend to, when I'm reading, I tend to read modern. So other than Jane Austen, most of my reading, I do prefer books that have come out, within the last 5 or so years. And partly because, as writers, I like to keep up with what's out there and all that. But even before I became a writer, I usually was, at the bookstore, at the library, seeing what was out, what was coming out.
It's funny that you mentioned, I don't know, funny is the right word, but funny that you mentioned Jane Austen, because I would say that my reading comprehension of books that were written probably before 1900 or so they're harder for me to read. But there's something about her work that I fall head over heels for and get totally transported and lost in. And just absolutely love her work. And it's like, I never feel like I'm reading something that is written from a time long ago because it's something that I can just lose myself in.
I agree. It's one of the few books that I can reread. I don't reread any book, but it's one of the only ones that I can just, it's like a happy place or a comfortable place where if like I need to hide away under the covers for after a bad day, I'm like, oh, Jane Austen, It's like Calgon, take me away.
It's like a cup of tea. It very much like soothes the soul. Right. And we have Mark chiming in the chat saying that the reasons that you mentioned, Sydney, for loving cozy mysteries, he also agrees with those. Those are his reasons for loving cozy mysteries. But also he hasn't read or seen that much Agatha Christie as well. So it just goes to show like there's a mystery for everybody out there. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to know, we've heard about how you started reading mysteries, getting involved in, all the different genres that are out there. Let's talk about the writing aspect, because writing a cozy mystery, I think, is a lot harder than people think, just because we have to give this really warm, welcoming world, but we also have to deal with a very dark topic of murder, but yet still entertain our audience while we are on this very kind of somber journey. When it came to sitting down and writing, was it something that, are you a meticulous outliner? Or do you just sit down and go by the seat of your pants? What's the actual craft experience for you?
I'm a wannabe plotter. I really, really want to plot. But when I do, I usually just end up like looking around and, doing other stuff. It's the only time my house is really clean. I just can't seem to see it. So I usually, before I start writing, I usually know who at least a few of the characters are. I know the setting, and I know who the victim is. But sometimes I don't even know who did it. So, and it kind of comes to me, and it definitely makes for a lot of rewriting, I think. But I am more of a pantser at this point.
Okay, I've got to ask you, and that still blows my mind, because I actually wrote contemporary romance before I started writing mysteries, and those I was a total pantser. It's like, okay, I have my two characters, and I just kind of went with it. But then moving over to mystery, I'm not a super plotter. I come up with a timeline. I come up with a 2 or 3 page outline, and that gets me where I'm going. But within that, outline includes knowing who the murderer is, because I need to know that so
Right.
I can kind of keep those guardrails in place. How can you write a murder mystery without knowing who done it? That blows my mind.
I know. And I really want to know. And I have an idea who I think it could be. But twice they fooled me.
Really?
So I go around and I'm writing and I think, okay, this is who did it. And then I'm like 3/4 of the way through and I'm like, oh my God, it's not them. It's too obvious. It was you. And then I'm like, oh my God. So I write to entertain myself, clearly. And I'm the weirdo at the coffee shop that's like laughing to myself and giggling and speaking out loud. If I'm like, does that make sense? So I'm like saying lines to myself. But yeah, it's sometimes I think I know, but it does change, because I think if I know who it is from the beginning, it's almost like it's too obvious. And then I'm like, and then I reread it and I'm like, yeah, I really, even though I think I'm being really stealth and sneaky, I'm really not. I'm like not good at that. So then it's some other person. I can't even believe it.
I'm very glad to know that I'm not alone in this process, because when, and this has actually happened to me for the last 2 books that I have written, where when the murderer is introduced, I'm like, oh my God, it's so obvious that it's them, just because of like where they're placed in just the novel and how they're placed, and me thinking like, oh, here's the killer popping up. I think that really translates into your work. And so the fact that you can have this kind of interactive engagement with your manuscript as you're working on it, I think that at least has been, for me, my saving grace for these last 2 books that I have put out, because otherwise everybody would be like, oh, well, there's the killer. And we're done by page 12. And so
Right.
I think I really like hearing that you have this very engaged process while you're writing. And even though like most of the time I'm in the same boat as JC, where it's like, the one thing I know about the story is who's dead and who killed them and why. But I'm finding that's beginning to change and evolve as I find different ways to kill people, different ways to pull off a crime.
Right.
So it's a really fun process.
It is. It's so much fun. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why I do it, is I just enjoy it so much. I think I can't remember who said it, but there was an author who said when they write, it's like driving through fog. If you turn the high beams on, it's not helping you see any further. So if I plot way ahead, it just doesn't seem to help me, at least not yet. So I have to keep it at that low light, keep it fairly, I know maybe the next 2-3 chapters, but I still, I still have to discover what's happening as I go along. And I'm done a first draft now, so I'm looking at it going, oh my God, there's a lot of work to do. But it's fun. It's enjoyable. Like doing the first draft, I usually try to take about 3 months, write every day, so it's really fresh, and so I know where everything's going. But then it's at least as long as that to then go back and fix it all up.
Mm-hmm.
So that, at the risk of kind of going down too far into the technical stuff, so I'm curious, and I love you sharing with us that not knowing who the killer is makes it fun for you. And you are so right that if we don't enjoy what we're doing, there's no point in doing it. But kind of, again, talking about, from the craft perspective, you're writing along, and then when you get to the point where you need to change something, mm-hmm. whether it's like a big plot point or, one of the characters, I'm really curious, how do you do that? Do you then have to go back to the beginning and then kind of rework what you're doing until you get to that point? How does that work? Because for me, again, since I'm the outliner, I can kind of go through pretty much at least the whole first draft. And it's like, okay, I just keep to my outline. So how do you do that?
It's a process. I'm really lucky that my mom and my aunt are my beta readers, and because they love me and they're so patient, they reread along with me. So I'm like, okay, this has happened. And so they know the stories very well, as well as I do, pretty much. And so they're really good at looking for what the changes. Usually after I finish writing my first draft, I take a notebook and I write down each chapter what happens. So it's almost like I plot afterwards. If that makes any sense, I don't know. So because I want to make sure that the plot is moving along, that there is stuff happening. And so sometimes I do have to kind of move things around. And once I do figure out, for sure who did it, I usually, I write in Word, so I will search up the name, even if there's 300 of them. I'll go and I'll make sure that it's all making sense from chapter to chapter. And when I do the chapter breakdowns, that's usually a good time to make sure that it's making sense. But again, it is slow.
Well, I always say that I learn something new every time we have one of our shows, and the idea of summarizing what you've written is, I think, one of the most amazing things that I've heard, at least in 2024 so far, because mm-hmm. I think about the time. So when I am done with a writing session, what I normally do is I end on a cliffhanger for myself, where it's like, a character asks a question and I don't answer it, because when I sit down the next day, I know that, okay, at least I know the answer to this question and I can keep moving forward. But I always kind of give myself some little notes of, this is what needs to happen within the next couple pages. But when I sit down to write those and I read my notes of where I need to go, I'm like, oh, but what just happened? And then I go back and I probably read, the previous 3 or 4 pages, and I was like, wow. And I start editing those as I'm going along. It's like, the time that I could have saved by just having a little summary of what had been happening, and to help me keep moving forward rather than, taking 2 steps back to go 1 step forward. That's a really brilliant idea, Sydney. I would, I feel like you could market that, market that to authors. That's really clever.
Oh, well, thank you. It feels convoluted when I explain it, but I think probably every author you have on has their own methods of doing things, even, within the pantsing or the plotting, even within those specific things, there's just so many different ways to do it.
Agreed. And JC, you've said this multiple times before that, there's no one right way to write a book. And I think this conversation among many goes to prove that. Yeah. So for our folks that are watching and you're toying with the idea of writing your own manuscript, there isn't one, find the way that works best for you, and keep moving forward, because then we get wonderful books like Peril and Pink out in the world.
Thank you.
Yes, Pearl and Pink. Speaking of which, I heard somebody compare that to Schitt's Creek meets Only Murders in the Building. So there you go, folks. There. Go hit that one-click button right now, because that just sounds too much fun. So one thing I'd like, kind of circling back to Peril and Pink, Sydney, that I'd like to find out from you is kind of not just the B&B itself, but the community kind of at large. Again, the previews talk about being in the Hudson Valley. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about, because one of the things we love about Cozy Mysteries is the community. Talk about that a little bit.
Right. Well, so it's funny because now when we're talking, I'm realizing like all these, I guess I watched a lot of TV when I was younger, because I'm thinking now of like Gilmore Girls, and which is one of my favorite, all-time shows. And one of the things I loved about it was the community and all the different characters that you get to know. And I think that cozies are good at that, and it's something that I really enjoy writing about, and having my characters, each have their own quirky qualities that add to the story, or at least the setting or the characters and all that. So Hudson Valley is, it's a huge stretch of area, and I've gone through it a few times. It's a beautiful area. There's lots of trendy little towns, and it's a great road trip place to weekend, that sort of thing. And it also kind of reminds me a little bit of where I live, because I live, even though I live on a lake and it's along the river, but there's lots of little beaches and lots of little communities with great coffee shops and restaurants, and I wanted to have a place like that, that wasn't too far from a city. Like you can leave New York City and go to some fabulous little towns along in the Hudson Valley and that sort of thing. And I just think it's a great place as well because the town is a fictional town. I didn't want to try to have like a real place, but there's so many different towns, and each one has its own specialties, whether it's a foodie place or a wine place. And I really just like having those little communities to create based on, not just my town, but little towns that I visited.
Can you give us some, or tease some of the places that Jess and Kat and Lars, that they get to visit while readers are enjoying Peril and Pink?
Like within the community?
Mm-hmm.
There's a coffee shop. So one of the characters that I really like, and she's I've just, as I said, I think I'm writing the second one now, but her name is Mona, and she's a octogenarian, but I kind of like envisioned almost like a B. Arthur kind of character with big shoulders. She knows everything that's going on. You can't really mess with her, but she's a gossip. She really likes to gossip, and So going to the coffee shop is always a great place for the characters to go and pick up some good gossip and find out what people are saying about them. And another, I guess it's not really a place, but a couple of the characters that I enjoy is the Mafia. And the Mafia is comprised of Jess's mom, who's a retired school principal, and her best friend mostly, which is she's an office worker, basically runs the police station in town. And My mom also, when I was growing up, we called my mom and her friends the Momfia, because they really could get stuff done. Like, you just didn't mess with them. And if you've ever seen or been a part of a mom group on Facebook, I mean, if you want to know something or get something done, there's no better place. So I I really enjoy having that kind of thing. And so within the community, there's all sorts of little places that they go where where the characters are just always getting into trouble or that sort of thing.
Momfia has got to, that's got to be like one of the most clever things that I've heard.
Yeah. Well, Len, unfortunately, we've only got about 15 minutes left, which is a total bummer because this has just been absolutely delightful. But kind of continuing Peril in Pink, it's not out yet. It is going to be out soon. Can you give everybody some details? When's publication date and when and where and all that good kind of stuff?
Sure. So it will be officially out in the world on March 19th. Which is just less than
That's right around the corner.
Than a month away. God, I can't believe it's coming so soon. But it's available at all the major retailers, and it's if you don't see it at your local indie bookshop, I'm sure they can order it in. And a great place that I always suggest readers look or request it is at their local library. Because you can only request books at a library if it's your local. So I can request it in my town, but and that's great. There's thousands and thousands of libraries in the U.S. and in Canada. So it's absolutely wonderful to get your book into the library system. And in the States, I don't know if they do this, but in Canada, we have something where we get an annual check to offset actually when books are in library. So it's for me, it's not tons, but it's a little kind of bonus.
Nice.
That is nice.
yeah, it's nice, but it's great. So library is an absolutely fantastic way to find the book. And then it's also on Audible, and if you Audible or again at the library's a great place to find audiobooks. So and then Kindle, it's in hard book. It won't be in paperback to start. So hardcover, Kindle, and audio. But yeah.
Have you had a chance?
Well, that's so cool.
Have you had a chance to listen to any of the recordings of the Audible track? I'm always curious, like, what does it feel like to hear your words being performed by somebody else?
It's so cool. I've been listening to it. They sent it to me. It's being done by Dreamscape Audio. Mm-hmm. Tracy Odom is the name of the narrator, and she's just fabulous. They sent me before it was produced, they sent me 4 different people, reading it, and myself and my agent, and we just agreed 100% that she was the person to do it, and she's just fabulous. Awesome. I'm terrible at reading my work. And so I just, not only is she great at it, but it's just, I have such an appreciation because I get nervous when I'm reading my work. So I stumble over words and stuff. So when people do it well, I just, yay, I'm so happy.
And speaking of happy, I want to let you know, Jeff Russell reporting in saying he is waiting on his pre-order as we speak. So there we go.
Yay, thank you.
Good on you, Jeff.
Well, it's hard to believe that our Bookish Hour together is drawing to a close. It's been so much fun.
So
it went by. It always goes by so fast, and it's been great, Sydney, talking with you and getting to learn about Jess and the world that you've got going on in Peril in Pink. Super excited for it to be out in the world. As we kind of move into our final segment, though, we want to get your recommendations for our viewers. We love to hear what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're watching, anything that's entertaining you right now. That you can recommend to us.
Okay, so right now, I listen to a ton of audiobooks because I have a big dog. I walk a lot, and I'm always driving kids around. So I'm listening to Kristen Brecher's Photo Finished, which is a fabulous modern cozy. So I'm really enjoying that. And I am watching Love is Blind. I love my reality TV. I know. I always say it's for research because I want to make sure I'm like up on the modern lingo. So that's my excuse, and I'm
That's a
sticking to
very
it.
good excuse.
And I think that's it right now. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, and I want to say, I don't believe in it. We should never apologize unless it's illegal for what we're enjoying. So I mean, it's like life's too short. So, don't apologize for it. Believe me. So Sarah, speaking of things you're not going to apologize for, what are you going to tell us about and not feel bad about?
Oh, I'm not going to feel bad about any of these. I just finished listening to book 22 in the Misfortune Mysteries by Jana de Leon. Well, actually, no, it was book 21. Book 21 was Swamp Sweets. And I am already listening to Flaming Fortune, which is book 22 in the series. I absolutely love those books. I've listened to them all on audiobook, and the performance that Cassandra Campbell gives, like, talk about a performer who just embodies the characters. They always leave me laughing out loud. And somehow, like, after 22 books, like, we still have murders happening in this tiny little Louisiana town. It cracks me up. Absolutely love it. I am also reading a upcoming release that is joining the world next Tuesday, which is Magic Box Murder. I'm about, I think, 20% in, and I literally just started a couple hours ago. I'm just like hooked into Darcy Gaughan's next mystery adventure.
I've heard of that book.
I can't wait to read that one. It looks awesome, and I love the cover too. So congratulations.
It's so fun. I'm so in love, and like, talk about like creating a sense of community that you can just really root for and just like feel warm and fuzzy about being a part of. Darcy's world is so warm and welcoming. So very much enjoying that, JC. And then for what we're watching, I think we just started last week. We're watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I've never seen any of them before, or that I can remember. I feel like I may have seen them on TV a really, really long time ago when I was a kid. But we're watching them now. George is following this list that he found on the internet that says, like, which ones maybe you should skip or, just avoid watching. But we've been watching them all and giving our judgments on them, because the ones that people don't like, I'm like, I love this one. And the ones that deal with all the mind control, that makes me anxious. And like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, can we just get to the part where they're released from this?
I saw the one. Do you remember the one where Data? I don't know if he's like had some sort of alcohol or something affects him, and he's looking for love. I don't know.
Yes.
It was just like, it was so memorable. It was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. The Naked Time, I believe, is that episode. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Well, yeah. Well, Sarah, just season 1 isn't great. Season 2 has its moments. Once you get to season 3, then you're golden. We're in kind of mid season 1 right now. And like, after every episode, George is like, it gets better. And it's like, I'm very much enjoying it and having fun. I love Commander Riker and his just like personality. He cracks me up every time he's on screen. And it's just really, it's good fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Well, very good. I'm so proud of you as Sydney. I mean, Sarah has to put up with all my Star Trek references and comments and stuff like that. So, like I said, live long and prosper. So for me, big news. I actually have a podcast to report on for what I've been listening to. This is thanks to my wife, Nancy, Smartless, which is a podcast that's hosted by Jason Bateman and Will Arnett, and just Jack from Will and Grace. And I can't think of his name now. Sean Hayes. Yeah. Sean Hayes, yes. Those three, they have a podcast, and basically they kind of like what we're doing now. They bring entertainers, sports figures on, and they just chat for an hour. Wow. And it's a lot of fun. It's currently on, I believe it's on, you can get it on Amazon Podcasts, but I think they're going to be moving to Spotify soon. They started it during COVID because they were kind of stuck at home and have been doing it now ever since. And I know they have like over 100 episodes now. And so it's a lot of fun because it's a lot of the, talking to folks, being silly, having a good time. So, check it out. It's fun. And those are, 3 likable, actors too. So, so that's what
I like that one too.
You do? Okay. So there you go. So Sydney recommends it. She has more pull than I do, folks. So there you go. And other than that, it's kind of funny. I'm on vacation. So my wife and I are getting caught up on Bones because, it's like you just kind of turn on the TV. So you're not at home. You never know what's going to show up. It's like, oh, Bones. So we're watching Bones repeats and, having some fun. So that's kind of about it for me.
I love Bones. That's another one that's like, I got all the feels from that show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 12 years.
It's a lot. It's like we can, and talking about like the prolificness of some of the content that we're consuming. It's like, we can only hope that we can continue delivering stories to people and bringing them joy. And people are certainly going to have joy when they read Peril in Pink, which is coming out this March. Sydney, it's been so wonderful chatting with you this evening. Thank you for being here with us. It was great hearing about your characters, hearing about your writing, hearing about your love of reading, and we're really glad that we get to celebrate with you on this new venture.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate your patience with my inability to figure out tech, but thank you so much, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. It was so much fun.
Oh, it's absolutely our pleasure. So for folks who aren't familiar with your work, where can they find you both online and now with the book coming out here next month? Do you have any, where are you going to be live and in person?
Well, I'm doing an in-person book launch in Burlington, Ontario in Canada for any Canadian viewers out there. So that is, I'm really easy to find. If you just look up Sydney Leigh books or Peril in Pink, you can pretty much find me. I'm on everything. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Just started that one, working with it. Twitter. So, whatever you like, I'm pretty much there.
Okay.
Awesome. So it sounds like for our viewers, you can find Sydney wherever you prefer to do your social mediaing. And for folks who joined us here live this evening, it's always great to have you here. Hopefully you enjoyed our celebration of National Margarita Day, as well as celebration of all things cozy. We do have another episode of the Bookish Hour happening next week on Thursday at 8 p.m. It's like a bonus episode this month. We're going to be having Paula Charles on. We're going to be talking more cozy mysteries. So it's been a really cozy February with everyone. So we hope that you'll be able to join us, subscribe to our channel so that you get the notifications when we go live. And until we see you all again, stay bookish, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.